good morning, my friends, and welcome to the Pennypack Trust in eastern Montgomery County. It's just days after a huge storm has rocked the entire region, and we're going to be walking through these snow-filled fields and forests to find a very fascinating place of historical interest known as Death Gulch. And the story of Death Gulch is one of tragedy and transformation. There was a head-on train collision that ultimately resulted in the death of 27 people and changed the laws regarding trains and transportation through the entire country, and it occurred just a mile or so away from here. And we're going to see if we can find that spot where the tragedy occurred. So it's a beautiful morning. This is a beautiful preserve, probably the finest there is in the whole eastern half of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. And let's go for an adventure, guys. Let's see what we see. I'll be telling you more about this event as we go. And let's hit that trail. Gator out. Now, this Pennypack Trust Preserve is a beautiful landscape of forests and open fields like we're in now, and it also protects the Pennypack Creek watershed. There's hundreds of acres here and miles of trails. You can make loops that are short, medium, or long. The story of Death Gulch is that there was a railroad track from Philadelphia to Newtown, Bucks County, and almost 100 years ago, on December 5th, 1921, two locomotives crashed head-on in a series of tragic mistakes, mainly human error. And as a result of that train crash, the federal government changed laws in regards to how trains had to operate. So the trail we're on at the moment is known as the Raythorn Trail, and in the warmer months these fields would be full of seasonal native grasses that have been replanted on former pasture land. And shortly we'll be heading into the woods and then down to the creek. And then on the other side of the creek is the Pennypack Rail Trail. Now, one of the secondary reasons I chose to hike this trail today was, again, weather related, because I didn't want to drive too far. The roads are still not great. And also, in doing my research, the train wreck occurred on December 5th, and there was in fact snow in the region. So we'll get to see what it looked like as much as possible as when the actual incident occurred. Alright guys, we're just continuing along the trail here, and we're in like the main section of the park now, and on the other side is the old rail tracks, the rail trail. We're going to follow along this side of the creek till we come to a bridge. We're going to cross that bridge, we're going to loop over to the other side and make a little loop. Directly on the other side of this narrow rapids area is, you can see the old railroad bed, and behind it is actually an old rock quarry. We'll be on that side soon enough. Death Gulch is a little bit further upstream on the other side. Now crossing the Creek Road Bridge, and right on the other side is the rail trail, and we're about maybe a third of a mile from the infamous site of the head-on train wreck in 1921. It's such a peaceful location now. It's hard to imagine the carnage and terror that occurred here nearly 100 years ago when these two trains collided and people were burned alive and crushed to death and mangled beyond recognition. You got to remember, this was a fairly remote location at that time. There was no easy access to get here, and rescuers were essentially helpless to help the dying. You can see that we're coming into a hillside, and this was a single track, and there was a system for trains coming both ways to stop and wait as the other one passed, and it was all a true tragedy of human error when this took place. But as you're looking straight ahead, that is Death Gulch, and this is exactly where the two trains collided with one another. They were not able to see each other because of the curve and because of the rock cutout. If this had been a straightaway, perhaps they would have seen each other in time to stop, or at least slow down enough to avoid catastrophe. It's been reported, and according to my reading, that pieces of coal can still be found in this area from the explosion that occurred 100 years ago. There is no actual remaining wreckage, but occasionally chunks of coal can be found in this area. such a beautiful place today. It truly belies the tragedy that occurred here. And as someone who's lived in this area my entire life, I can tell you that very few people are even aware that this tragedy ever took place here. It's a truly fascinating part of history. Historical photos will show that right here along this bed of rock, the two locomotives are toppled on top of each other like toy trains. It's unbelievable. The ensuing fire burned the wooden passenger cars, as I said, and people burned and suffocated to death. Here's a placard, a memorial, and I'll read to you some of what it says. Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania. At this site on Monday morning, December 5th, 1921, a horrific head-on collision between two passenger trains of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad occurred, taking the lives of 26 people and injuring 70 others. Most of the casualties came from the communities served by the rail line, especially Churchville and Southampton. The impact of the trains as they tore into each other was so great that it hurtled the engine of 156 into the air like a toy and tore 3 cars to matchwood. Hot coals from the twisted wreckage of the locomotives poured a flood of agony and death on helpless passengers pinioned in the shattered coaches. The shock of the trains could be heard for 3 miles. Residents of the scattered farmhouses near the scene of the wreck rushed to the scene and, standing on the rock cliff, were staggered at the sight that met their gaze. Pinned against the rock wall of the cut by the wreckage were 2 women. Their screams rose over the tumult of the hissing steam and the cries of the other injured. And it goes on, and there's some good articles online, one from the Bucks Courier Times, I believe, and another, a book by a man named Charles Adams, something about the great, I'll put it in the, I'll put it on the video, because it's eluding me at the moment, but it's just amazing. Alright guys, so there you have it. That was the site of one of the greatest railroad tragedies in American history. A head-on collision right in the middle of the rock cut, right in the middle of winter, on an isolated stretch of track. And 26, I've heard 26 or 27 people lost their lives, and countless dozens were injured. And you know, as the sign said, no one would ever be able to get the horrific image out of their minds for the rest of their lives. Well, my friends, I think that's going to be about it for today's hike. My legs are burning. This trudging through the snow combined with the shoveling I did in the last couple days, I'm gonna need a break for a couple days. But thanks for coming along on another adventure. A beautiful hike to a truly tragic location, but I felt that it was important to document that event that occurred almost 100 years ago. And like I said many times, it's just not well known and well reported. And I just wanted to make you, the viewer, aware of what occurred there. And life is crazy, so you gotta enjoy it while you can. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you. See you on the next one. Gator out.